do live while you're at work, but you'll be able to check out the Deeva Show. So we got a little two-pot going on in the background, trying to get y'all ready and prepared. We're going to be talking about Larry's book, SeeMortal, The Don, I Welcome Death at the Door. And as soon as we finish this song, we're going to be getting into it. And hopefully you'll post some questions if you want to ask him some questions on his live, because I am not live on Facebook, but I'm live on YouTube. All right?
Just because you ask me questions don't mean I'm going to answer all of them, though.
I know that's right.
Gotta buy the book. Yeah, that one look real clear.
I like that. It's nice
I
and
like
crisp.
that one too.
Welcome back, welcome back. You're on the Deeva Show with Deeva Gordon on Sador Radio, along with Larry Thompson. And welcome.
How y'all doing?
Welcome
hey,
back.
how y'all doing?
So we're going to be talking more about your book, SeeMortal, The Don, I Welcome Death at the Door.
Yes.
Do you remember where we left off?
Not really, but I mean, just shoot.
All right. So
what did you think about the book? Let's start there. What did you think about the book?
It's a lot of things I thought about.
Did you enjoy it?
I enjoyed the book.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed the book.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell y'all something y'all may not have known about Deeva. I love to write. I'm going to say it again. I love to write. And I will admit, and some people don't want to admit things, they don't want to be real, but I will admit, I do not like to read.
No?
No.
Oh.
And I'm being honest and I'm being straightforward. I think part of the reason why I don't like to read is I didn't like to read is because, you know, I wear glasses and most times I wear contacts, but I have a little bit of a struggle. Mm-hmm. My eyes start to tear up and I start to get, you know, irritated. So basically I'll start reading it, but if it doesn't keep my interest thoroughly and keep me turning the pages, I tune it out. I close the book and I keep it moving. So for me to jump out somewhere and say, oh, I'm going to buy that book, it really has to be interesting for me to read it page to page. So when you ask me if I enjoy the book,
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a crazy schedule.
Okay.
And even with my crazy schedule, I finished your book in 2 days.
That's what's up then.
So
that's what's up. That's what I wanted. I wanted, when you pick it up, you shouldn't put it down.
And I didn't want to, and I was at work, and it was a couple of times I had to be redirected because I was into the book. So
you couldn't get your work done.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah. You know,
that's a good thing.
I'm just going to say, because it was a conversation that we had after I read the book, because what it was is that you came to a table read that I had for Witness. And prior to that, even though you were, you know, in the industry and you knew quite a few people that I know, that was the first time I met you.
Right. Well, that was the second time, but that was the first time. You didn't remember the first time.
Right. Okay. All right. I didn't remember the first time. But the role that I casted you in, is like, I was totally unaware. And after reading the book, I was like, wow, okay. And I think we talked about that a little bit. And I said, I'm not sure if I read the book first, if I would have casted you in that role. I don't know if I would have casted you in that role. And I guess
actually thought I was going to do Jean. That's what I thought I came for.
Yes. You really, yes. This is true. This is true. And we worked some things out with different characters and character changes and things like that. But yeah, I remember we had a conversation because you thought that you was going to be reading for Jean. But the thing is, even though you didn't read for Jean, what you did do was absolutely phenomenal. So
well, I had fun. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
I do have to ask the question though. You said you're not going to answer all questions, but I will ask.
I do my best to answer most of them.
So when you and we're going to get back to the book because I'm asking that question and taking it back to the book. When you actually started rehearsing
Yes.
your role
Yes.
as Bo.
Yes.
What thoughts did you have behind that in portraying that character at that time? Because I just looked at a clip that you had where you played the role of an officer.
Yes. Yes, I played a police officer too. Mm-hmm.
So, I guess I can ask, was there any, mindful controversy that you may have had or thought about when you were playing the role of an officer? And what are your thoughts when you were playing the role of the, I'll just say in some way some people depict it as the gangster.
Okay. Well, going back to the book, if you do read the book, you'll see I talk about a bunch of different characters in the book. I talk about different guys that I saw, how I mimicked their style. They were black superheroes to me. They was the hustlers, the pimps, the hustlers, whores, drug dealers, and killers. They were my role models. I saw them. I mimicked the things that they did. A police officer and let's say a guy that's a boss or a guy that runs a company, they all have the same characteristic traits. You know, they all running businesses. They all are people of authority. Like a police officer is a person of authority. Mm-hmm. You know, so when people see him, they're going to definitely step to the side. You know, humble themselves when they see a police officer. Same thing if you see a businessman. He running a company. You know, people are going to move to the side when they see him. You know, because he's a businessman. He's used to telling people what to do.
Okay.
So it's not hard. It wasn't hard for me to distinguish just that one is legal and one is illegal. And sometimes you have them both doing the same thing.
This is true. And that's majorly another show.
Yeah.
Definitely another show.
Yeah.
So, in reviewing the book, and I'll say it kept my interest when you asked if I enjoyed the book. It kept my interest because throughout the book, you also had, I don't know if you would call it poetry, spoken word.
Right.
That you were explaining some of the emotions that you were going through at the time. And one of the things that stuck out to me is the title that you had of chapter 11 in your book.
And what title is that?
Bitterness builds character.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Bitterness builds character. Well, you can be upset. You could be so upset about something that you take that and you build on it. I was at a place where I was told, at that time when I wrote the book, I was at a place where I was told I would never come home. I was told I was going to be there for at least, I would be doing at least 20 years, is what I was told. When you grow up, a lot of us are told that we're stupid, that we're ignorant, that we're dumb, we're never going to be anything. And that comes from that place. I said that I was going to prove everybody wrong. And in proving everybody wrong, I took what I was upset about and I built on it. And made sure that I would be successful at it. You know, you put effort. I mean, it's about, effort is everything. You know, a lot of people give up because there's a lot of people that want to write a book. It's a lot of people that are told a lot of things that they can't do. And I'm just one of those guys that's like, I'm going to prove you wrong. You know, I wasn't supposed to be here, but I proved them wrong.
Okay.
You know? So bitterness builds character. I mean, that's basically what I'm talking about. I'm gonna. You just seen the boxing match, Ruiz. Ruiz just knocked out Anthony Joshua.
Okay.
And it's that kind of situation where everybody looked at him and said he was fat. He couldn't do it. You know what I mean? Joshua was too big for him. but he proved them wrong. Everybody had to eat their words. You know?
Underestimating people.
Exactly, and I've been underestimated most of my life.
And and I was talking with my brother about your book and about your story, and when you were talking about when you decided to take your chances when it came to your case, opposed to just playing out.
Yes.
That's just, I look at that. That's an example of it at the same time.
Right.
I guess for me, what was going through your mind, if you could explain, because I know you said it to me, when you was thinking about just taking your chances. Because, I mean, and just like you say, uncertain tomorrows, what you were facing was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, uncertain.
In chapter 10, he talks about uncertain.
What was uncertain? You got to refresh my memory on this. It's been a minute since I read that. What I'm talking about uncertain tomorrows?
Well, I'm basically applying uncertain tomorrows when basically they wanted you to take a plea deal, which would give you a lot of time.
Right.
And you opted not to do that.
Right.
One person against a whole system.
Yeah, but that's most of my life. You know, I can't seem to find it right here right now.
Is
what page is that?
124. It's on 124.
All right.
Well, I'm just going to say that
I got it. Yeah. All right, but what you're talking about, as far as I wrote this book. I wrote this book when I was in prison. When I wrote this book, I had about 10 years in at the time that I wrote it, and I thought I was going to be in prison for at least 24 years. While in prison, I went to school. I learned some of the law, and I was moved from prison to prison. I ended up being in 5 different prisons. The 4th prison I was at was SCI Frackville. While in Frackville, I went to the hole. While in the hole, I started to write. I was in the hole for 30 days, and I wrote this book in 30 days. At the time that I wrote the book, I didn't think that I was getting out. And I wanted my 2 daughters at the time to know that I didn't leave them, that nobody wakes up and wants to go to prison. So I started telling the story of how I got to that point. And in writing it, it became therapeutic for me. The more I wrote, the more I remembered. So the more I started taking like a self-evaluation of myself. And I had to take a look at myself, and some of the things that happened, they could have been prevented. At the time, I didn't know that, but so I started writing. And the result of what I wrote was, this is the result of what I wrote. SeeMortal to die, I welcome death at the door. In order for something to live, something must die. And it tells the story of a single parent raising her son, and the different things that the mother went through, they were also passed on to her children. I had 2 sisters, and I was the youngest out of 2 girls. So the book tells the story from the day I was born, from 12/24/70 up until me being a teenager.
And I believe the last show that we had, we talked about what led you to go down that road that you went down. And one of the things that you were saying is basically the influences of what
I saw.
You saw.
Yeah, it was the things that I saw. If I grew up around doctors, judges, lawyers, I'm quite sure that I would have wanted to be a doctor or a judge or a lawyer.
Then
if
again,
I grew up around them.
I'll play the devil's advocate on that. And you got to think about this too. There are some children that are very privileged, that do grow up around doctors and lawyers, and some, judges, and they become addicts.
There are some, but the chances of me doing the things that I was doing I mean, I doubt it. I doubt it because I doubt it. We mimic what we see as children. You know, we play cops and robbers, and we play cops and robbers as a kid. A lot of time, everybody want to be the cop, not the robber.
True. True.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. Just like you said, no one grows up.
Yeah, no one grows up wanting to do some of the things that we did. So I actually tell the story in my book. I'm telling you what not to do. Right. You know, so if somebody buy this book and read it, I'm talking about watch your child. You know, pay attention to the things that you do. Pay attention to the things that you're saying to them. In today's time, you have to pay attention to YouTube, the cell phones. Mm-hmm. You know,
even the cartoons that they
cartoons, all that. You have to pay attention to all that stuff. So these are the things that I'm telling you in this book, because throughout the book, there were always moments where I could have did something different. I could have did a lot of things different, looking back on it, but I chose not to. And going back to when you were talking about poetry, I started out writing poetry, and throughout the book, there are poems in the book. And anytime you see in the book, it'll say Larry Thompson next to it. It's actually a poem that I wrote. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it's actually a poem that I wrote, and it's and I placed it in the book. And
I'm just going to say, like I said, in reading the book, very inspirational. As far as it's almost like you can feel and mm-hmm. you can see what's taking place at that moment in time. It kind of like takes you back, especially if you know, born and raised in Philly, and if you're aware of the city, the different locations right. and everything. If you're unaware, a lot of these activities prior to incarceration took place in South Philly.
Yes.
And you know, I don't know. For some reason, in my eyes, I see the 80s.
The 80s
as a different color.
Mm-hmm.
A different color. I guess, like, you know, one of those Spike Lee movies. You know how they always start, and it shows the different vibrant colors in the area. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking too much, but I'm just saying that's what I see. And when you started in the beginning, and you were talking about your mom and
right.
so forth, and then you were talking also about how she met your dad. And
right.
It's like I could visually
mm-hmm.
see that. So I'm just saying to you all, when you get the book and you start to read, it's almost like reading a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, back to what you were saying, when I talk about in the book, that's actually not my father. I look at him as a stepfather. He was like the second male in my life.
Okay.
Okay. So I talk about her meeting him. My mother and father was already married before I was born, but they separated, and my mother and father were divorced by the time I believe I was 2 years old. But the guy that I talk about in the book, his name is Cannon, and he was like the first role model after my father. So I do speak about him. I speak about how they met. You know, as much knowledge I can gain of how they met, and you know, my interpretation of, you know, their relationship. I did write about that.
In the book, you talk about, and we mentioned this before. You talk about when you went to prison, when you would come home, you would have the struggle in doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, and you went back and forth a couple of times.
Yeah, I was in Glen Mills in the 80s. I went to Glen Mills in 80, 89, and I speak about that in the book. Yeah, I talk about Glen Mills, coming home on home passes.
Now, for you, at what point did you feel like, well, you may not have felt like you were too deep until everything hit the fan, but at what point do you think that you were too deep to just turn away from it? Because when you first start doing things, it's new to you, it's mm-hmm. fresh, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But at what point, at what age were you where you realized that that's just what you were going to be doing at that time, well, that you were in pretty deep?
I didn't think, that's just it. When you're young, you don't think past go. So at a young age, I thought that I probably would be doing this for the rest of my life. I didn't think that I would live past 18. So when I made it to 18, it was like You know, I wanted to celebrate, throw myself a party because I was actually surprised that I was still here at 18. When I turned 20, you know, I was, you know, thankful just to still be here. I didn't think that I was going to be here long. And again, that comes from the people you surround yourself around. If you surround yourself, if everybody that's around you believe that there's nothing else they can do outside of selling drugs, that's all you're going to do. If they believe the only thing you can do is do crime, I mean, I prepared myself when I was young to go to juvenile facilities. I prepared myself in juvenile facilities to go to prison if I wasn't killed. See, I didn't see past that. I mean, you have glimpses. You'll meet people in the course of my life, and I talk about it in the book. I've met people, and where we'll have conversations, and they'll tell me about different things that I could do. I may do it for a while, but I will always revert back to doing what was easy to me. And selling drugs, doing the wrong thing is easier than doing the right thing. And there's so many people that was doing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to keep in mind, like, when we're young, a lot of us are very impressionable. And self-esteem plays a part. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't talk about it, but self-esteem plays a part.
Major part.
Yes, it does. And a lot of us have low self-esteem of ourselves. A lot of us didn't love ourselves. I didn't love myself when I was young, so I would put myself in situations where something could happen to me, but it wasn't a thought. I mean, I would think about it after the fact. If I see my mom and my mother is telling me something about it, or I'm looking at my sisters, if they tell me something about it, but myself, no, I couldn't see that.
I think not just in your situation, but I think like thinking back on my life in my early 20s, mm-hmm. and some of the places where I was and some of the things that I was doing, I never looked at danger either.
Right.
You don't, others around you see it. Just like, you know, I talk to my youngest daughter. She's 21. And some of the things that she does and some of the places that she goes, I'm like, oh, right. Just please be careful. She's like, oh, Mom, I'm good. I'm okay. And I'm like, but you don't understand the dangers out there. I think a lot of times we don't realize certain things until
it's too late.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like today, some of the things that I did, a lot of the things that I did as a youth, I wouldn't do today. A lot of places that I may have hung out, I wouldn't do today. I have children, so I worry about my children. I have all girls. So I worry about them. I think about them. You know, I think about, I just wouldn't want to see them in some of the situations that I put myself in. So a lot of things that I took my parents through, I now see it. Like I see my mom and we'll hold conversation and I'll just hug her and she'd be like, what's wrong? And I'd be like, you know, I'm sorry for some of the things that I took you through. You know, when I see my aunts and they talk to me, they tell me about things like I'm proud of you, my uncles. And I laugh to myself because they see the change because of some of the things that I took them through. Mm-hmm. You know, and I definitely would never want to, I wouldn't want anybody to go through some of those things.
And in the saying that, I think I asked you before, I want to ask this question and then we're going to go to a musical break for just a moment. So in saying that, and I know that you wrote this book for not only your expression, but also, like you said, to teach people, you know, young men what not to do.
Right.
And to learn from it, not to glorify it.
Definitely.
If you had a room, and I think I asked you this before, mm-hmm. and then we're going to go to break and we'll come back with the answer. If you had a room of young men that you could talk to, what would you say to them as far as, you know, just briefing down, you know, because sometimes giving them the whole entire spiel, and a lot of them, you know, may not gravitate towards it, but mm-hmm. if you had a room full of young men that you could talk to and try to reach so that they won't make some of the same mistakes, you know, when we come back on the other side, I want you to share with us what inspiration mm-hmm. and information you would want to give these young men in order for them to not make the same mistakes. This is Deeva Gordon on the Deeva Show on SeeMortal.com. And we're going to go to the other side. Some of you are tuning in to our YouTube live. We're going to continue to keep talking to you, but we're going to answer the radio question on the other side when we come back from a music break. But we're going to sit and we're going to chill with y'all. We're going to continue our conversation. All right. So for those of you that are listening to the radio, We're going to check out a tune, and we'll be right back, all right? This is the Deeva Show on Sador Radio. I know it was a couple of, it was one of the poems that you wrote in here that I was just looking at the other night because I took the book to work, and I'm trying to find it.
Was it Delusions of Time?
I think it was.
That's that's another poem in here called Dearly Beloved.
Yes, I think that's, here we go.
That's it. Page is that.
That is 178.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
So, alright, I'm finish reading it as well as
You want to read out loud?
okay.
You want to read out loud? You and me?
What
was your question? What was your question about the poem?
Just, I'll ask after you. I mean, you want me to read it? I can read it. It doesn't matter. Either one of us can read it.
No, it's a poem in the book that she's talking about. The poem in the book is called Dearly Beloved. 1 second. What's that? Dearly Beloved. Dearly Beloved, my thoughts are of you always. You are the happiness in my situation as well as the pain in my reality. You bring balance to a world desperately needing stability. I am at the threshold of life and death. It appears that I am doing better only to do very worse. I often wish not to feel, for my young heart has been hit hard repeatedly. My eyes have seen so much more than I am able to understand. I yearn to forget, however, the mind will not allow that. For me to see the world, my domain, through the veil is next to impossible. My soul cries out for release. The spirit begs for consolation. Dearly beloved, adore.
Now, were you in a hole when you were writing it?
Yes.
It sounds, I mean, in reading that.
Yes, I was in a hole. Oh, damn, no. Yeah, I was in a hole.
I don't know, it's a lot that's
I was definitely in a hole.
That's being said. And honestly, I think that a lot of young men may identify.
Well, I'm quite sure they can. You are the happiness in my situation as well as the pain in my reality. That alone. It's like, it's talking about, basically, you make me feel good. How much I care about you, how much I love you, but at the same time, we're a million miles away from each other. That's the reality of it. So just the thought of knowing that you want to be with somebody or be somewhere and you can't. I mean, just shows how powerless you are. And when we're in prison, we are powerless. We don't have any control over anything. As much as we try, as much as we act as if we do, we don't have control over anything. I had children, I couldn't do anything but hold a conversation with them on the phone. If they feel like they want to talk to me, all they got to do is give the phone to somebody else. So I mean, in this poem, I'm talking about all that. I'm not just talking about my children. I'm talking about the mother. I'm talking about the woman that I was seeing that stopped coming to visit. And
I was getting ready to leave. I was getting ready to lean into some of those questions because one of the things that we touched on the last time that you were here for the interview, we touched on the conversation where you and ladies, I'm just telling you, he keeps it very interesting with some of the I say bouts.
Man, I was upset. I wrote this. I was angry. I ain't watered it down. I was upset.
No, and you know what? But it wasn't, like I said to you before, it wasn't over the top or anything of that nature. But what I wanted to touch on is not so much the intimate part, so to speak, but I would say I don't even want to say hustler mentality of it, but the whole idea that in that world, is there such thing as a stable relationship?
Thing is, do we even know what a stable relationship is? You know, a lot of us come from dysfunctional homes.
This is true.
So because we came from a dysfunctional home, if we come from abuse, some of us believe that to show love was through abuse. You know, whether it be verbal or physical, whether it be the woman or the man. You know, so a lot of us didn't even know really what love was. I didn't find out what love was until I learned to love myself. But I learned to love myself in prison through re-educating myself. But man, my mom, listen, my mother used to send me a bunch of books to read, right? Mm-hmm. While I was in prison, because everybody left. Everybody. The gang left. The women left.
And see, that's what a lot of these young men need to hear.
Everybody left. The only person that was there that was consistent was my mother. Wasn't nobody else. And I'm not upset with anybody that wasn't there at this point in my life. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they weren't there. I mean, there were moments when they were. I mean, there was a time when all the women that I knew, I didn't see them for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I didn't know I was only going to be in jail for 13 years. So I was going through it. But at the time, one thing about, I caught a lot of blessings in prison. You know, like different guys that had sisters mm-hmm. that was coming to visit them. And I would be in the visiting room with my mom. Mm-hmm. I would see them. They would see me. We would communicate. And they would start coming to visit me. You know, so I caught a few blessings that way. I met different women that was on visits, whether they were somebody's sister, mm-hmm. somebody's cousin, or somebody that knew me and just happened to see me in the visiting room. And they said, look, next time I'm come up, I'm going to call you out. So that for like 5 years. I mean, that's the way things had to be. Because my mother came to see me. My mother came to see me at least twice a month. And I was all the way in, I was 4.5 hours away from Philadelphia. And she was taking that hike. Yeah, everybody. Mother's love. Hey, man, my mother taught me how to love all over again. You know, my mother sent me books on a regular. She would buy 2 books. And what she would do was keep one and I would keep one. And our conversations could no longer be about what my baby mother doing. What my homie doing. Did he do this? Did he do that? So I couldn't have them conversations no more. Mm-hmm. So what happened was, and at the time I didn't even know this because I was still trying to figure out like, look, I need you to call my daughter, mom. Can you see if you can get up here? Can she come up here with you? Mom wasn't going for that. But she started sending me books to read. She would keep a book. I would have a book. And that would be our conversation because I would be like, yo, I'm on chapter 7. This would happen. And she'd be talking to me about her book.